So there are two theories for what's happening today. Either DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is so bad at her job that even Donald Trump 2.0, said, "You're fired." Or her firing could be a distraction from the increasingly unpopular and controversial war in Iran, which, come to think of it, could have been an effort to distract from the disastrous and bungled cover-up of the Epstein files. Their partial release might have actually been a distraction from the cruel and deeply unpopular conduct of federal agents on the streets of Minneapolis, carrying out Donald Trump's mass deportation campaign and killing 2 U.S. citizens in the process. Now, whether Trump's distracting from a distraction that was a distraction of an unpopular distraction, we'll let you decide. But here's the news. Kristi Noem has been fired from her position as the country's Secretary of Homeland Security. In tried and true Trumpian fashion, Donald Trump announced her firing on Truth Social, adding that she's been appointed special envoy to the Shield of the Americas, a position no one had heard of until a couple hours ago. Corey Lewandowski is also out at DHS. As news of her firing was breaking, Kristi Noem was speaking. There she is. She was speaking to law enforcement, and it wasn't clear at all if she knew she'd been fired, as while she was talking, she talked about meetings she was going to have in the coming days as DHS Secretary. Awkward. Now, regardless, her tenure at DHS will be remembered until the end of time. It was defined by the mass deportation program that was built to be ghoulish and intentionally cruel and to market those aspects of it. It led to the deaths of at least 2 Americans, ripped apart countless families, and seemed to revel in doing so. It was also defined by lawlessness. Under Kristi Noem's leadership, Noem and her department defied more than 100 court orders. They defied judges more than 100 times. Under her tenure, Donald Trump's approval rating cratered on the issue of immigration, once considered one of his strongest policy issues, propelling him to the presidency 2 times. Today, a poll showed that half of Americans support abolishing the department she ran. Kristi Noem was also the tip of the spear in the gaslighting of all Americans about the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good. Here's a reminder of what Kristi Noem said immediately after their killings.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
Those were not the facts. Those were lies. Incredibly, though, all of that may not have been what did it in the eyes of Donald Trump. You see, on Wednesday, while testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Kristi Noem was asked about a massive $220 million ad campaign, which was funded by us, the American taxpayer, and it prominently featured her in shots like that on a horse, in full hair and makeup, with a cowboy hat on. Taxpayers paid for her to make those ads of herself on horseback at Mount Rushmore. Noem said under oath when asked about it that Trump personally approved that, the controversial ad blitz featuring her in the lead role. But Donald Trump today said he was completely unaware of that ad campaign. Quote, "I never knew anything about it," he told Reuters shortly before firing her. Kristi Noem's replacement is someone you'll soon hear a lot about, I'm sure. It's Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. He's a former mixed martial arts fighter, of course he is, who is a staunch defender of Donald Trump. That's just getting started. And it's where we start today. Former DHS Chief of Staff from Donald Trump's first term as president, Miles Taylor, is here. Also joining us, senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard. With me at the table, senior contributing editor Michelle Norris. Michelle, my first thoughts went to the families of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. You'd like to think that smearing them would have been the thing that got her fired. It wasn't, and we'll continue to unpack any causation or correlation that we are aware of at this hour. But her legacy will always include those killings in Minneapolis.
And the way that she described them very quickly, you know, without a lot of time to digest what went on. We watching that now is surreal. To listen to her describe what happened on Portland Avenue when Renee Good was killed, that they got stuck in the snow, they didn't, that they were firing defensively, they weren't. Now, this will go through the courts and it will all be adjudicated, but people know what they saw through a multitude of videos that were released. Whoever is replacing Kristi Noem, if it is Markwayne Mullin, if he winds up being approved by the Senate, they're inheriting a royal mess. I mean, this is a department that is struggling with morale problems. We know that from some of the things that have been leaked from people inside both ICE and CPB. Infrastructure problems, financial problems. The Inspector General just released letters to Congress earlier this week saying, you know, outlining the problems inside the department. The Homeland does need to be defended. It is important that, you know, DHS does play an important role, but what happened to this agency in such a short period of time? There's a real problem with credibility, and it's going to be difficult for, I think, for Markwayne Mullin to be the person who brings back that credibility, especially when we were just listening to him yesterday, having a hard time describing why we're in Iran. He is so loyal to Donald Trump.
That's right.
Really
That's right.
Forget, you know, things happen so fast. We forget that just happened yesterday. What they really need is someone who will be able to come back and restore some credibility to the organization, to be able to remember what the Department of Homeland Security actually is supposed to be doing and start rebuilding that department from the ground up.
Vaughn Hilliard, I won't ask you to get to the bottom of what the last straw was or why it happened, but just take me through all the things that that might have piqued Trump's interest in her poor performance. I mean, chief among them, his cratering poll numbers on the question of immigration once his strong suit.
Right, and I think that is an embodiment of the struggle for anybody serving in Trump 2.0 cabinet, that Kristi Noem effectively tried to carry out his goals and the agenda of a mass deportation effort, but she struggled to do what was legally within the bounds of her abilities to do so. I don't think that you're looking at somebody that was not an avid spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security. She made those ads to promote the work of those deportation operations in their immigration restriction efforts. But instead, what you had was somebody who was limited by the bounds of judges, somebody who did not make Donald Trump happy because of the bounds, that there was not a greater mass deportation effort carried out, and one that oftentimes had bad imagery associated with it, children running from school in New Jersey, the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. But I think that that is going to be the struggle for Markwayne Mullin as well here, because Kristi Noem, in many ways, right, a couple weeks ago, I asked her at the White House about the Fourth Amendment rights of unreasonable search and seizure, and whether folks were being asked with unreasonable suspicion for their papers. And her quote back to me was very clear that they are doing everything correctly. So in so many ways, I think that she was a figure that tried to do her best on behalf of Donald Trump and his desires, but that is where there is such a short straw for individuals, and she could very well be the first to fall. Because if you look at the other one, for example, right, unlike Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel carrying out efforts in Fulton County, she effectively was unable to prove at any point that there were non-citizens on the voter rolls across the country, which she herself acknowledged was under her purview. She did nothing to show that there were cybersecurity threats to vote tabulating machines around the country, which she also suggested was under her purview. And so in so many ways, I think her performance up on Capitol Hill by effectively throwing Donald Trump under the bus of approving that $220 million ad campaign only added on to the difficulty she had in garnering the approval of the man that she reported to.